In this episode of In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, we catch up with Jets color analyst for radio, Marty Lyons. Marty Lyons, great player for the Jets, defensive tackle out of Alabama, first round pick, 14th pick of the draft, consensus All-American, plays unbelievably well for over a decade for the New York Jets. Then he goes into the broadcast booth for over 20 years. He's done TV for him. He's a star in the New York media market for sure. Marty Lyons has a lot of knowledge about the New York Jets, especially this year's team. I think you're going to find his insight very, very entertaining. Thanks to you guys, our YouTube channel and our podcasts have really grown. I mean, significantly grown. And I want to thank you very much. First Star Logistics wants to thank you very much. They started a sweepstakes that is unbelievable. If you haven't taken advantage of the First Star Logistics sweepstakes yet, come on, man. People have. I mean, I'm talking about a lot of people. Now, there are multiple ways that you can get multiple entries into the sweepstakes. And First Star Logistics is just waiting for you. And prizes, let's talk about prizes. $3,000. How about that? How about an iPhone 13? How about dinner at Jeff Ruby's for two and me? I'll probably bring my wife as my companion for sure. And what about a sign of football for you, and 2 tickets to a Bengals home game? Might be the home game that clinches a playoff berth for the Cincinnati Bengals. What better season to get 2 tickets to a home game? Good tickets to a home game. First Star Logistics sweepstakes. We're doing it because we love your support. Welcome once again to In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, our gorgeous studios once again we're emanating from. And our special guest today is one heck of a football player and one heck of a broadcaster, Marty Lyons. He's the color analyst for the New York Jets radio network. But prior to that, I mean, unbelievable career. Alabama, played for Bryant. What was that like?
You know what, David? You don't realize what it means to play for Coach Bryant until after you leave. You know, we won a national championship. We won 3 SEC titles. But I think the core values that he was teaching his players, they last a lifetime. So everything that I try to do today is pretty much a reflection on what I learned from Coach Bryant.
So you win the national championship. That game against Penn State, talk about that a little bit.
Well, you know, going into the game, they were ranked number 1. We were ranked number 2.
Yep.
And it got down to a goal line stand. And, you know, when our defense coordinator, Ken Donahue, signaled in the defense, we were so well prepared. You know, we kind of knew the mentality of Penn State. We knew the mentality of Coach Paterno. And his mentality was the same as Coach Bryant. If you can't run the ball for a yard, you don't deserve to win. So we sold out. And Barry Krause came over the top, and
right.
Mike Clemens came around the corner. And it was just a perfect defense for that play. And, you know, what a way to leave the University of Alabama, your last game you ever played, winning the national championship.
Unbelievable. So that's 1978. And in the draft, you're the 14th player. I mean, we're talking first round now, the 14th player off the board to the New York Jets. And your teammate, future teammate, Mark Gastineau, was the second-round pick. You were the first-round pick. He was the second-round pick in the beginning of the New York Jets' famous sack exchange. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But what was it like when you came to the New York Jets? You're a consensus All-American at Alabama, national championship under your belt, and you come to the New York Jets as the 14th pick in the draft. Pretty heady stuff. What was that like?
Well, it was pretty heavy stuff because, you know, expectations were, okay, here you are coming in as a number 1 draft choice. You're going to change the culture. You're going to change the mentality. You're going to be the savior. But you know what? You were only one player. And I think the biggest thing coming from the University of Alabama to the New York Jets, it was now it's strictly a business. It's a job. You got to go out there and you got to earn your pay. You got to play. But you also have to get used to losing. We only lost 6 games in 4 years. And if we had had 6 preseason games, we probably would have lost every one of those. But It was exciting. As a child, you always dream of, reaching that NFL level, and then all of a sudden you're there, and then the next thing you know, you're lined up against people that you watched for so many years. The
Right.
Terry Bradshaw, the Bob Greasy, the Larry Zonka. Now you're playing on the same field as them, and the Jets organization. My rookie year, we went 8-8, but we lost our first game to Cleveland, and then we went up to New England at halftime. It was 35-3. We lost 56-3, and it was just a beatdown. But throughout the years, we had good leadership with Greg Buttle, Joe Klecko, Richard Todd, and we started to turn the corner, and we made it to an AFC Championship game. We lost 14-0 to Miami. And, Dave, they give you a little pat on the butt and they say, hey,
Right.
don't worry, we'll get them next year. And unfortunately for me, I retired in 91. That next year never came. And we got close a couple times, but we just weren't good enough to turn the corner. And I think a lot of that had to do with some season we started fast and faded at the end. And some season we found ourselves, trying to dig ourselves out of a hole week in and week out. Once you dug yourself a hole in the AFC East, it was hard to get out because you had Miami, New England was coming into their own. The Colts were still in our division, and you got to start fast in the NFL. And I think that's what the Jets are finding out now, at 1-5. You got to dig yourself out of the hole because nobody's going to feel sorry for you.
Talked about it briefly that you and Mark Gastineau were the same draft, first and second round picks for the New York Jets, and then Joe Klecko, Abdul Salaam, and it's the famous New York Sack Exchange. And you guys rang the bell at the New York Stock Exchange, right? Isn't that where the name came from?
We did.
The four of you rang the bell and started the day for the New York Stock Exchange.
And you know what, Dave? That was an exciting time playing for the New York Jets. An exciting time when I look back at the history of me playing for the Jets. But when you have two guys with that much talent on the edge, with Joe Klecko on one side, Mark Gastineau on the other side, they both ended up with 20-plus sacks. Abdul and I, all we had to do was hold down the middle. And, I was very fortunate to become good friends with Joe, and that friendship has lasted a lifetime. And you look back, and that was a special moment for all of us. And, you don't want to live in the past. You want to use that as a stepping stone for the future. But for some of the young kids that I talk to that play with the Jets now, I tell them, you know what, you got to cherish this moment. You got to take advantage of it and use that platform to make a difference in other people's lives. And whether they take time to do it on the football field or off the football field, a lot of young kids are looking at you, and be an example to them.
Tell you, in the early 80s, boy, you guys had it going on, though. You were a heck of a football team. That defense and Freeman McNeil, running the football, Rich Todd, like you said, you guys had players. You guys were formidable.
Right. But Dave, we never could turn the corner.
Yeah.
I mean, even in that shortened season where we went out there and we beat Cincinnati, I think 41-0, and Kenny Anderson was the quarterback, and Freeman ran for over 200 yards. The following week, we went out and we beat the Raiders on the road, and they had Jim Plunkett. Then we went down to Miami, and it had rained all week, and a lot of people said that Coach Shula just left the tarp off the field to make it a wet field. And my response is, well, you know what? They played on the same field we did.
Right.
And it was wet. The big difference is, that day Richard Todd didn't have a good game. He threw 5 interceptions. When you have that many turnovers, it's hard. It's hard on your defense. And we allowed, A.J. Dewey took one back for a touchdown, and then the defense gave up a touchdown. And as a result, you lose 14-0. And we never got really back to that position again.
Played for 11 years and 12th year on injury reserve, unfortunately, during that stellar career. And now you're doing broadcasting games for the Jets as the color analyst on radio. And that's why I wanted to pick your brain a little bit in this matchup. Talk about this year's New York Jets. You mentioned, 1-5, and they're coming off a spanking. The Patriots hung half a hundy on the Jets, and that game got out of control early. But I mean, beat the Tennessee Titans in overtime, and it's like that's the National Football League. But is it just that one game, or have the Jets been trending down since that win against Tennessee? How do you see it, Marty?
The big thing is, Dave, and you know it, when you have that excitement, you work all week for a game and you prepare, you watch film. Then you get to the stadium, and then there's that excitement. Now, this year is totally different from last year because last year you had no fans. Now you got the fans. Everybody's excited. You got to take that energy and you got to be productive in the first quarter. The Jets are getting outscored 44-0. They're the only team in the NFL that hasn't scored in the first quarter.
Yeah.
And as a result, I believe they're at halftime, it's like 106-20. So when you go in at halftime, you're supposed to be making the adjustments to finish the game in the last 30 minutes. Instead, the Jets are finding themselves at halftime figuring out, how do we get back in the game?
Yeah.
And as a result, they're 1-5. You are what your record says you are. And they're a young team. They're an energetic team, but they've got to learn how to win in the NFL. You have a first-time head coach in Rob Saleh, who I've had an opportunity to sit down and talk to. He's very exciting. I think he's going to turn the program around. You have a general manager in Joe Douglas, who's building for the future. And the whole thing is, we all have to be patient. We have to understand these young players coming out of college. They don't know what life in the NFL is. They think they can play, and they probably can play, but the game is so much faster.
Mm-hmm.
And I think once the Jets, they mature as a team, they mature as young football players, and they turn into men in the NFL, they're going to be okay.
The two things that jumped out at me when I started doing prep for the game, like you mentioned, hadn't scored a point in the first quarter in 7 games and been outscored by 44-0. No interceptions either. The only team in the NFL that does not have an interception, and they've thrown 11. That's the most interceptions thrown, and they have the fewest interceptions. They're minus 11 in the turnover department just in interceptions, and they're plus 3 in fumbles, so they're minus 8 overall. But, man, throwing interceptions and not getting any, being minus 11 there, that's obviously a big reason why they're 1-5, right?
Yeah, it is. But you can take, on the positive side, you got all those interceptions, but 4 of them came in one game against New England in week 2.
True.
And anytime you play against a Bill Belichick defense and you're a rookie quarterback, you're going to come up there pre-snap and you're going to see something on the defensive side. And then all of a sudden you look down, you take the snap and you go, whoa, wait, what happened?
Yeah.
And, Zach just had a bad game, and, they picked up the pieces, and now we're going to see what they're made of, Dave. And if you play the game long enough, you're always going to be involved in one of those lopsided wins. And it's going to show the fans, it's going to show the team, it's going to show the organization, what are you made of? Because you're playing a Cincinnati Bengal team they're just rolling. To beat the Baltimore Ravens the way that they did by 20 points and win the other game by 20 points, and you're 5-2 and you've only lost to 2 games by a total of 6 points, and one was overtime.
Yep.
This is a good, solid team that's well coached and well disciplined, and it's going to be a challenge for the Jets this week.
Mike White playing quarterback for Zach Wilson. Mike White is in his 3rd year. I think Western Kentucky. Is that right? Western Kentucky kid, 6'5", big, not a real mobile guy, but obviously a strong arm. What do you anticipate out of Mike White? It's different finishing a game as opposed to, okay, now here's the tape and now you're the starter. It's a totally different animal. You know how that goes in the National Football League when coaches have a week to prepare for you and what you've shown so far. What do you expect out of Mike White?
Well, I expect Cincinnati to come in and stack the box and shut down the run and say, hey, Mike White beat us.
Yep.
And Mike White is going to have to take it, pretty much what they have done with Mac Jones up there in New England and Josh McDaniels has done. Take those short passes, do the quick slants of 5 yards, hit it to your receiver, and throw it to the playmakers. And hopefully that 5-yard reception turns into 12 yards, the run after the catch. I don't think that you can expect Mike White to just drop back and open up the whole playbook. I think you have to, the old KISS theory. Keep it simple, stupid,
Yep.
and try to keep your offense on the field. Move the ball down, create field position, and then if and when you have to punt, make a long field for Joe. In Cincinnati, make them move the ball 80, 90 yards down the field. Don't give them a short field, because you guys definitely have some playmakers.
So the offensive line, to me, I mean, threw the ball a lot last week against New England because the game got out of control early. Only gave up 2 sacks. I watched this offensive line a little bit on tape, and I'm thinking, it's pretty solid. They're not playing terrible football whatsoever, up front. And I look at the other side of it, the Jets D line, which all about the trenches in both areas there. I mean, they play that wide 9 technique with those defensive ends and crash, and they're the 2 guys inside are physical. I'm telling you, at the line of scrimmage, looks like the Jets are pretty competitive.
Well, they are, but everything is timing in the NFL game. You don't want to lose negative yards on first down, and come up to a 2nd and 10 or a 2nd and 12, and then you get into a 3rd and long, where the 3rd and long, there's a big advantage to the defense. Defense is just going to pin their ears back. Last week against New England, the leader of that defense is C.J. Mosley, and I'm sure you guys remember him. Yep. When he played for the Baltimore Ravens. Yep. This is his defense. He sat out last week because of a hamstring injury, but that's no excuse. No excuse at all, Dave, for the way that they played last week. Mac Jones throws for over 300 yards. You got Damian Harris. He runs for over 100 yards. The Jets just couldn't get off the field. And if you're going to win in the NFL, you got to play complementary football. Yep. You got to have the offense, the defense, the special teams. And New England, I think they scored 8 out of their 10 possessions. So, and then when they had a chance, they went for it on 4th and 1. The score was 24-7. They could have kicked a field goal. They went for it. They didn't pick it up. Minute and 53 seconds, I believe, left before halftime. Good field position for New England. New England went down and stole some points right before halftime and made it 31-7. Mm-hmm. Rather than making it 24-10, and then you get the ball to start the 3rd quarter, possibly score, then you're back in the game at 24-17, and the numbers would possibly work out. They didn't work out. Now we're going to see them against Cincinnati this week, and hopefully they can rebound.
Where do you think the best players are on either side of the football? If Marty Lyons is doing a thumbnail scouting report sketch, I mean, who are some guys that you'd target and say, hey, we get a player here, we get a player there?
I think Quentin Williams is the guy up front. John Franklin Myers is the guy up front that can play. Those guys can put some pressure on the quarterback. Mm-hmm. Shaq Lawson comes off the corner. He can put some pressure on them, but they have to bring their A game. You can't play in the NFL and play a good play, and then take a couple of plays off. I think on the offensive side of the ball, you got Corey Davis is having a great year. I'd like to see the Jets get more active and get their tight ends involved, because if you can get your tight ends involved, then you're going to make those safeties play a little bit further off the line of scrimmage. So, again, the complementary football that they have got to understand is you're a young team. You got to keep yourself in the game. And as a quarterback for Mike White, this week, he just has to manage the game. Manage it. Don't go out and try to say, hey, it's all on my shoulder. It's not. It's 11 guys on offense and 11 guys on defense.
You mentioned Corey Davis at wide receiver, a talented kid. Another kid that can really run is Elijah Moore. I mean, that kid can run. You got some speed there. Tyler Croft is battling a little bit of a back injury, former Bengal tight end. I think he looks like he might be the best tight end that you've got. Do you think he'll be able to go this week?
Well, I would hope so. I think that, he showed what he could do during the preseason. But again, Dave, you got to dial it up to him. You got to find those guys. And the problem in the first 6 games is you've had a lot of drop passes also. So, they can throw the ball to you, but if you don't catch it, then it's a missed opportunity.
Right. So injury-wise, the injury report, sometimes, you can take it and crumble it up and doesn't really mean much. Are there any significant injuries that the New York Jets are dealing with going into this football game in your mind?
Well, you know what, Dave? I'm not sure, but I think if you look at Rob Saleh, he's saying next man up. I know that they had a couple players that got dinged last week and now are in that concussion protocol.
Yeah.
I don't know whether they'll be ready for Sunday or not. But it's next man up. And the one thing you have to do if you're a young team, you have to communicate back and forth. And if you don't communicate, you're going to have a breakdown eventually. And, at 1-5, you can say, hey, you know what? It's a long season. We can climb ourselves out of this hole. Just go out there and be respectable. Hold yourself accountable. Look at yourself in the mirror and say, hey, can I play better? And I would think man for man, looking at that team, if they're honest with themselves, they will say, I can play better. And then you take that individual approach and then put it into a team concept, and just maybe you can win a game or two.
Sure. Bryant Boyer, special teams coach. His punt return team's third in the NFL. His kickoff return team's fourth in the NFL. He seems to be getting some good productivity out of his special teams.
Yeah, you know what? He's the only holdover from Todd Bowles to Adam Gase. He was held over to Rob Saleh. Just a great individual, gets the most out of his players, puts them in the right place to return the ball. Braxton Berrios,
Right.
I think he's a better punt returner than kickoff returner because you don't see a lot of kickoffs return now. Everybody's going to take the touchback, take it at the 25-yard line. Occasionally you'll see somebody try to run it out. They get to the 23, get tackled, and you kind of say to yourself as an announcer, all you got to do is take a knee and you pick up 2 more yards.
Right.
Plus, Dave, you don't get hit.
Yep.
So I think that that third part of the team, the special teams, can play a big part in field position.
No question. What are you hearing out of the New York Jets coaches and players? And I know since we've had COVID, it's harder to spend time with those guys. But overall perspective, what are you hearing with regard to Joe Burrow and the season that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are having in Cincinnati?
We don't get to communicate that much with the players nor the coaches.
Right.
So they still have that protocol in where we don't travel with the team. If we do travel, it's going to be on a commercial flight.
Uh-huh.
But you know what? All you have to do is turn on the tape.
Right.
All you have to do is watch the film, and you can see how Joe has grown into an NFL quarterback. Well, last year I thought he held on to the ball too long. He was trying to make too many things happen. And then you bring in Chase. And I don't think that I have witnessed a wide receiver in their rookie year have a bigger impact than Jamar.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the record. He's got more yards, over 750 yards in his first 7 games. Nobody in NFL history has done that. I mean, and the NFL's been around a long time. So
yeah,
they have one of those special connections. I mean, they played together in college and they won a national championship together. And that year, Jamar Chase wins the Biletnikoff Award as the best receiver, and Joe wins the Heisman. So, they've a lot of reps together. They know each other, I mean, back shoulder throw, when you have to figure out when and where to do that, they don't even have to communicate, just a look, they know what's going on. It's got that mental telepathy thing going. It's pretty special.
Yeah, you know what it is? It's that trust factor.
Yep.
And I can relate to that because, again, I'll go back to Joe Klecko. When he was in that wide 9 and we were, was 3rd and long,
yep,
he would just look at me and give me a nod. And no matter what I was planning to do, I knew that nod meant he was going to take that tackle up the field, come underneath. I had to hold the guard on the line of scrimmage and come out and get containment.
Right.
Now, 9 out of 10 times, Joe would either get the sack or he would flush the quarterback out to myself. But it didn't matter what I had planned, Dave, is what Joe wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you just, sometimes you communicate with a look or an understanding, but it all has to be that trust factor. And he's got it. That's why they won the national championship in college at LSU.
Yep.
That's why they were both so successful, and that's why Cincinnati Bengals have turned the corner, because now you have playmakers.
Yeah, I mean it's been a lot of fun here so far, and I've been in the situation that you're dealing with as well, with a new coaching staff. You know, trying to establish a culture. You got the youngest football team in the National Football League. I mean, it's amazing how many young players are making significant contributions. But overall, you're pretty impressed with the coaching staff. How's young Mike LaFleur doing, the offensive coordinator? His first time ever as an offensive coordinator. Obviously, he's got a pretty good lineage. His brother, the head coach up there at Green Bay, and is in the Mike Shanahan coaching tree. I mean, he's got a pretty good heritage there. What's going on with him?
Yeah, I think he's still trying to figure it out, Dave. I think that, a lot of critics are pointing to him to say, you haven't scored in the first quarter.
Yeah.
What's wrong? But you can call the right plays, but if they're not executed in the right manner, then whose fault is it?
Right.
A lot of the players really, again, the accountability of the players, they have to look at themselves. And so did the coaching staff, especially after that performance up there in New England. If you're not embarrassed, there's something wrong. Every player should have that pride within themselves to say, wow. And I heard after the game, players were upset that Bill Belichick ran the score up. Well, you know what? This isn't college. If when they put in Brian Hoyer, at some point of this season, they may need him. So why not allow him the opportunity to move the ball, throw the ball? And if you're embarrassed about it, then stop him. Do something on defense. Don't say, hey, you know what? I'm looking over there at Bill Belichick. You shouldn't be doing this. You got a 24-point lead. Just run the ball on us. No. Do what you're supposed to do. Do what you get paid to do.
Right. And like you said, facing the Patriots twice in the first 7 games, and Bill Belichick, I'm sure those young players went out there and said, "Oh, we just went against them a little while ago. I know what to expect." And then he gives you something totally different.
Totally different.
Nobody changes from one week to another. You might as well throw away that game plan, because Belichick, man, he's giving you something totally different on a weekly basis.
Yeah, because in week 2, if you don't have all those interceptions, you look at what the Jets did offensively.
Right.
They outgained New England. They outperformed New England. They did everything that they were supposed to do except win the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter about the statistics at the end of the game. What only matters is whether you get the W or you get another loss. And Bill Belichick changed up the entire offensive game plan, and he changed up the entire defense.
Yep.
And what they were watching and reviewing and preparing for, because they probably felt that, week 2, they lost to New England. This is the true New England. Not with Bill Belichick. He's always going to change it up on you.
No question. No question about it. Well, you've had a heck of a career in the New York market with the New York Jets, player, broadcaster, and also you're vice president of public relations for a company. Give us an idea of what you're doing there, Marty. You're a multi-talented dude.
You know what? It's life after football, Dave. Sometimes, you got to go to work. And
That's
I've
right.
been with the LandTek Group now for 21 years. We
Wow.
build and design athletic fields and stadiums, and been very blessed to be with this organization. We've gone from, a small company of $6.4 million to now we're almost a $200 million company in the last 20 years. And we're the largest, I believe, turnkey construction company, where we build it, design it, maintain it at all levels: high schools, municipalities, college, NFL.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Congratulations to you, man. I mean, you've been a tremendous success in many endeavors, and that's a tribute to you for sure.
Well, you know what, Dave? I've always believed if you surround yourself with good people and you believe in yourself, anything is possible. And I've been blessed to be with the Jets organization for 43 years, just like you have, being with Cincinnati for so many years, and
Right.
being here at LandTek for 21 years. you put yourself in a situation and you believe in yourself and you never want to quit, and you always are honest with yourself. You know, we're all not going to be perfect. We're all going to make mistakes. And when you make those mistakes, you apologize and you learn from them, and hopefully you don't make them again.
Yep. I mean, football is a good training ground for that type of thing. I mean, so many teammates have gone on to successes in many different business ventures. Football's a good breeding ground, I think. You know, the ultimate team game, 22 guys going against each other, and it's the ultimate team game. And you can carry that over to business on so many levels, man. There's no doubt.
Yeah, I think it also teaches you the core values,
Yep.
the discipline that you need when you go back to high school and all your buddies were going to the beach, and meanwhile you're out there on the football field training, and you wearing that weight jacket, and then you get to college and you start all over, and then you get to the NFL and you've lived a childhood dream. You're finally there, but then you realize, you know what, it's not everything you dreamed about because you're not in that ideal situation. And then you work as hard as you can every single day. And when you get knocked down, you pick yourself up. When you get knocked down and you can't pick yourself up, that's when you need your teammate to pick you up and say, hey, man, don't feel sorry for yourself. Because if you feel sorry for yourself, people are just going to walk on by you. Everybody, you know. So that's where the Jets are now, Dave. You can't feel sorry for themselves. They can't feel sorry for themselves. They're 1-5.
Right.
But, you know, with 17 games, that means you got 11 games left. Nobody's going to feel sorry for you.
Yep.
Nobody.
Yep.
If a team can beat you 50-0, they're going to beat you 50-0. And then all of a sudden you got to go into that next week's game. And if you still remember getting beat by New England 54-13, it's going to happen again. You got to put it behind you, have a short-term memory, and get ready to play Cincinnati, because they're for real this year.
Marty, appreciate your time. Thanks for giving us so much of it, carving the time that you did. You're outstanding, and I look forward to catching up with you this weekend. We get to travel, so we're gonna come to the Big Apple and watch the Bengals and the Jets go at it. Look forward to catching up, man.
You got it, Dave. We'll have a few laughs too.
I hear that, sir. Have the best day you ever had.
Yeah, you got it, Dave. Stay well. I'll see you on Sunday.
At First Star Logistics, we're a very strict company that really puts the pressure on our employees. Brakes? What are those?
That's what I'm talking about, Icky. Get the body right, then the mind's right. You know,
gotta get that body right.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
Become a star with a chance to earn the highest commission percentages in the industry as a freight broker agent. Check out FirstStarLogistics.com.